Okay, welcome. Good afternoon, good morning to colleagues from around the world. Welcome to this third session of the seminar, Still Breaking Silos Across Sectors and Boundaries. Following the introductory session on Monday, we have discussed yesterday how to break silos between sectors, such as energy, agriculture, water, tourism, etc. Today, the session will focus on breaking silos across countries. My name is Sonja Köppel and I'm currently the Secretary of the Water Convention. 60% of the global freshwater flow is in transboundary basins, and 153 countries worldwide share such basins. More than 40% of the world's population lives in such basins. And that's why transboundary water cooperation is crucial for peace, sustainable development, regional integration, human well-being, and also climate action. However, as the second report on the SDG indicator 6.5.2, which we just launched 2 days ago, has shown, only 24 countries worldwide have all their transboundary waters covered by operational arrangements for water cooperation. This means that we urgently need to accelerate progress in order to reach the SDG target 6.5 by 2030. And while we know that climate change impacts are mostly transmitted through the water cycle, we can see that less than half of transboundary agreements and transboundary joint bodies are actually dealing with climate change impacts. On the other hand, transboundary water cooperation is crucial to prevent negative impacts from unilateral adaptation measures, but also to make adaptation more effective by sharing data, by enlarging the planning space, and by even potentially sharing costs and benefits. We can also see that there have been examples where non-cooperation has led to problematic outcomes. For example, in one part of the world, one of the riparian countries made different climate change impact assessments, and one of them predicted increase in water flow, and the other one a decrease in water flow. And this has led to very different and diverging measures, which can lead to conflicts. On the other hand, we can also see transboundary basins and especially basin organizations around the world, which are starting to address the issue seriously. For example, in Africa, the Niger Basin Authority has developed a climate investment plan together with a number of international partners, and has then also raised funds for climate adaptation and gotten the first transboundary project from the Green Climate Fund, which will now bring concrete benefits to the basin countries, helping them to increase their adaptive capacity and thereby to better address climate change across the entire basin. This was a long process of breaking silos between the countries, between water and finance experts, between climate experts, civil society, and other experts. So today we want to look at what is needed to break such silos, to cooperate across boundaries. What has worked, what has not worked, how to convince countries to cooperate, how to convince them to see the benefits beyond the risks. And we know that climate change adaptation and the need to jointly adapt to climate change can be such an entry point, which can actually motivate transboundary cooperation more broadly. We will hear from a number of basins around the world, first a general overview, and then basins from Europe, Asia, Latin America, and also a youth voice from Africa. And we, the organizers, which are UNEC and the Secretariat of the Water Convention, as well as World Bank, and particularly the SIWA program, IMI, and also the Scientific Program Committee of the SIWI Stockholm World Water Week. We hope that this will help you all to better work together and to jointly adapt to climate change across borders. And with this, I will now hand over to Anders from the World Bank to moderate the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonja, for that introduction. My name is Anders Jägerskog. I work as the Transboundary Water Focal Point at the World Bank, and I'm also representing here at SIWA, the Cooperation on International Waters in Africa fund, which funds most of the transboundary activities the bank is engaged with in the African continent. We have a very exciting panel ahead of us, and you see the people that you will hear from on the screen right now, and they will each give a 7-minute presentation. And please, I'd like to encourage you to post your questions, comments in the chat. Please use the Pathable chat so that we can collate and have more of an interaction after the presentations. And we will keep monitoring that. So please post them there. Comments, questions, all are welcome. You heard Sonja was saying that 60% of freshwater flows are found in transboundary basins. And given this, the implementation of effective transboundary waters adaptation strategies is vital to tackling climate change, protecting vulnerable population. And you all know that a rigorous action-oriented plan on adapting to climate change occurring in transboundary waters is important for, first, achieving intersectoral progress, 2, reducing ecosystem degradation, and 3, preventing disputes over shared water bodies. And all of these topics here, you will hear from various angles, from various geographies, through our distinguished panel. We have 5 speakers. I'm going to present them first here, and then we'll hear from them one by one. First, we'll hear from Jos Timmerman from Water Frames, and he will be talking about adapting together approaches and best practices from basins across the world. That will be followed by Anna Geliapo from the Institute of Ecology and Geography from the Republic of Moldova. And she'll be talking about adapting to climate change in the transboundary Dniester Basin. She'll be followed by Talibet McCabe, who is an expert on regional water and environmental cooperation in Central Asia. And he'll be talking about transboundary cooperation in the Chu-Talas Basin, adapting to climate change. After that, we'll hear from Alexandra Moreira from the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, who will be talking on the topic of building climate resilience through transboundary cooperation in the Amazon. And finally, we'll hear from Ethiopia Bisrat, water resources engineer, and she'll be talking on the topic adapting together a youth perspective. After we've heard from all of these eminent speakers, we'll have a short time for comments, questions, and so on. And then finally, I will hand back for a conclusion to Sonja. But without further ado, let me then give the floor to Jos Timmerman from Water Frames to talk about adapting together and sharing best practices. Over to you, Jos. Please share your screen and presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Anders. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. So I'm trying to get my screen up. Something's not working, just a second. Okay, I hope you can see it now. We
see it, Jos, it looks good.
Okay, good. So what I want to talk about a little bit is about, say, 15 years of people coming together and talking with each other about how can we best approach the issue of climate change, how can we best adapt to all the problems that we are facing. And so I try just to give you an overview of what we've been doing there and how you may also benefit from that. So The background is that under the Water Convention that Sonja already mentioned, there's a task force on water and climate was established in 2006. And we have several task force meetings almost yearly. We've had several workshops on adaptation with different themes like how can we, for instance, finance projects, or how can we work on ecosystem-based, nature-based solutions. We have a global network of basins, which I will show a bit more in the next slide. And we have a series of pilot projects. And this is the basis from where we, develop insights in how to best adapt. So looking at the global network of basins, we have currently 18 basins being part of the network. We come together regularly. It's coordinated both by UNEC Water Convention Secretariat and the International Network of Basin Organizations in BO. Since 2013, we have regular meetings. There's with every meeting, there's a reporting on the progress of the different basins, so we can also follow up on what are the improvements and what are the actions taken and how does it work out. There's a sharing of data, monitoring disaster risk reduction. These are the topics that are discussed, and also about how to implement and finance climate change adaptation in a transboundary context. And so if you're in a basin that would be interested to be part of this network, you're welcome to join. And there's a link, and I guess as I understand, the presentations are available through the pathway. One of the products that was produced a few years ago, that was a lessons learned and good practices publication with contributions from 18 experts worldwide, partnerships with different organizations, and we have a total of 63 lessons learned and 58 case studies, which is not covering everything, but it's covering a lot of topics. And there's also a publication in the Water Policy Journal talking about this publication. The idea of this publication was to have these lessons learned to advise on how to develop adaptation measures, how to do this, what is the current state of the art, where are we looking at worldwide developments, and then link these lessons to case studies to give examples of how certain principles that are in the lessons learned are reflected when you look at the practical implications, and make sure that there's each lesson learned is linked to a case study and vice versa. And so give information on the practical application of measures. And on the map, you can see in the red dots, the different case studies spread all over the globe. So just to give you a few examples, for one of the lessons is to integrate climate change within general river basin management planning. So don't see it as a standalone issue, but treat it as an integrated part of the whole overall planning. And there's a case study about working on climate change adaptation in the Danube, where they first developed a strategy and then link it to the work that was already done on the Water Framework, the EU Water Framework Directive, and in this way integrated into this planning cycle. I think from Alexandra later we'll hear from the Amazon how they take an integrated approach of adaptation. Another lesson is to use ecosystem-based adaptation as a cost-effective alternative to the gray infrastructure. And there's two case studies linked to this lesson, which is about green infrastructure in Denmark, where they developed a wetland to reduce flood risks. And a case in the Great Lakes Basin, where the Great Lakes Basin took the basic goal of maintaining and enhancing ecosystems as the basis for adaptation. And I think Talabek will also tell you later in this session about the Chu-Talas example, where they use nature-based solutions for floodplains. Here's two other examples. Design new transboundary agreements. If you have a new transboundary agreement, make it flexible to ensure that the changes that will come with climate change are possibly taken up into the agreement, and not make a fixed agreement that's carved in stone. And one case study is the cooperation between Mexico and the United States, where they have this Minute 319, maybe you've heard about it, to account for the fluctuations in the water quality. There's also another lesson: ensure stakeholder participation when you're working on adaptation strategies, to make sure that you have to look at a basin for what are important measures, but then you have to implement them locally, and you have to include stakeholders to make sure that it's accepted also locally. And there's the case study of the Bugesera Basin between Rwanda and Burundi, where they had extensive stakeholder consultations, and they have community support and also community ownership of the measures. And I think Anna will later tell you about the Dniester Basin, where they had a substantial stakeholder consultation as well. Then other lessons learned. Tailor your message to your audience.
Can I ask to round up, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, I'll be almost done. So tailor your message to your audience and make sure to raise awareness. And one of the examples is here, the colors of the Dniester, where children were asked to make paintings, make colorful paintings of the Dniester, how they saw it. And then basically the message is, if there's a will to cooperate, then there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of support also to cooperate, but the will to cooperate is central. And here you see a series of reports that can support you if you want to cooperate. And with that, I will finalize, and thank you for your attention. Okay, thank you, Anders. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Jos, for that presentation and the invite to join in the work and the many opportunities that you highlighted. Not least integrating climate change in transboundary water management. So thank you. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over then to Anna Jeliapov, and she's going to talk about adapting to climate change in the Dniester Basin. So Anna, over to you. You have 7 minutes as well, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So today I'll speak, good afternoon to all. Today I'll speak about the transboundary Dniester River Basin, adaptation to climate change. So as you can see, the Dniester River Basin is situated in the eastern part of the Europe. It flows, the river flows through 2 countries, Ukraine and Moldova. River length is 1,360 kilometers. The river basin is over 72,000 square kilometers. So from which 72% are situated in Ukraine and 27% in the Republic of Moldova. The river flow is over 300 cubic kilometers per second, and the water volume is a little bit less than 10 cubic kilometers of water. Many water resources are formed in spring and summer season. The water resources are used for industry, domestic purpose, and agriculture. Main environmental problems are hydromorphological alteration, water pollution, biodiversity reduction, and climate change. So if we speak about the actual climate change over the last 130 years, the basin actually became warmer. In the middle and lower part of the basin, the average temperature increased over than 1 degree. And also it is seen the increase in precipitations. As a consequence, the Dniester River flow decreased and the occurrence of disasters increased. For example, 2020 was highlighted by catastrophic floods in the upper part and exceptional droughts in the lower part of the Dniester River Basin. Future climate is also not so optimistic. So the scenarios say that an increase in the temperature is expected from 0.2 to 2 degrees by the middle of the century and up to 4 degrees in the end of the century. As a consequence, the average flow will decrease and the intensity of floods will increase. For example, the intensity of floods will increase in the upper part about 30 to 40%, and in the lower part up to 65%. Of course, such impacts will have an effect on population and of course on main sectors of economy. So first of all, if we speak about the adaptation to climate change, first of all, it should be noted that international documents connected to climate change are adapted in national legislations in both countries. Also, strategies for adaptation to climate change and special plans to adaptation to climate change are developed in the Republic of Moldova as well as in Ukraine, and as well as at basinal level. Climate change adaptation measures are also included in the Dniester River Basin Management Plan in the Republic of Moldova. So transboundary dialogue plays a major role in order to decrease the climate change impact and increase basin resilience. And in this case, the collaboration between two countries is facilitated by Treaty on Cooperation in the field of protection and sustainable development of Dniester River Basin. It was followed by establishment of Commission on Sustainable Use and Protection of the Dniester River Basin. So this is the Dniester Commission. Currently the Dniester Commission includes climate change issues and activities, and especially working groups on River Basin Management Plan and emergencies are covering these issues as a main. If we speak about some common actions, recently a set of documents was developed covering key transboundary issues in the Dniester River Basin, as well as climate change. So was considered as a cross-cutting issue. So one of the first documents is Strategic Framework for Adaptation to Climate Change in the Dniester River Basin and its implementation plan. And second set of documents is, of course, Dniester Transboundary Diagnostic Analysis and its Strategic Action Program for 2021-2035. So these documents include measures to mitigate and adapt to climate change. One of the main strategic direction is mitigation of climate change and natural disasters. Some of few priorities measures were actually already implemented. For example, flood management in the Republic of Moldova. The plan for flood risk management was approved last year in 2020. And in Ukraine, all the necessary documents for the implementation of flood directive are prepared, and the preliminary assessment of flood risk in the area of Dniester River Basin is also carried out. From other actions, I would like to mention the monitoring network and common database. For the Dniester River Basin, two platforms were developed. Here can be found up-to-date information on water level at different hydrological stations within the entire Dniester River Basin and its tributaries from Ukraine and from the Republic of Moldova. Also, there can be found weather data and real-time weather warnings. From another common actions in order to adapt to climate change, I would like to mention spring ecological flood releases. So actually, along with creation of 3 hydropower plants on the Dniester River Basin, the flow in the middle and lower part of the river became regulated. So in this regard, spring is the most critical period for the production of aquatic ecosystems. Therefore, the so-called spring ecological flow, this is an artificial flood, actually is planned and released every year in order to ensure normal functioning of the Dniester ecosystem. And these flood releases are coordinated by experts, by a group of experts from both countries, from Moldova and Ukraine. And another common actions in order to adapt to climate change, there could be mentioned as river rehabilitation. So 2 examples of river rehabilitation. One is Yegorlik River, which is a transboundary tributary of Dniester, and some actions were performed like restoration of river sections, reduction of reeds area, restoration of vulnerable species of animals and plants, and promotion of integrated management to people. And the last action is rehabilitation of river segment Old Dniester with elements of flow regulation. Important sectors of this Old Dniester, which is actually an ox mow, which was divided from the Dniester by an earthquake a couple of centuries ago. So this important sector was cleaned and rehabilitated. Waterlogs were installed in order to improve the hydrological connection, and seminars to raise awareness among the local population were conducted. So in the end, please take a look at these images about the Dniester River. And recommendation from my side will be sustainable cooperation and common actions are the best way to adapt to climate change in this changing world. And so let's break the silos and build bridges. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Anna. You stayed perfectly on time and you covered such an immense amount of material in only 7 minutes. I really appreciated the bringing it down to the concrete example between Moldova and Ukraine. One question I have for you, I ask you to ponder it, and we'll get back to it, is, I mean, you outlined the different things that have been done. But I was wondering what were the main challenges, if you can think about that, and I'll let you come back after the other presentations. I'm thinking, you know, both technically, politically, etc. If you have the opportunity to talk about that just after these presentations. So without further ado, we move to another example here of transboundary cooperation and you know, in the view of climate change, and we're going to hear from Talebek Makeyev. It's going to talk about transboundary water cooperation in the Chu-Talas basin. Over to you, Talebek. You have 7 minutes. I'll come on screen when you've got 1 minute left. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And so in order to save, can you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
I've been asked to talk on behalf of the Chu-Talas River Basin. There is a Chu-Talas River Commission set up by the agreement which was signed in the year 2000, and then commission itself with its bodies was formed in 2007. And so from the early beginning of the commission, it was, okay, it doesn't scroll down. I don't know why. And I would like, on behalf of the stakeholders of the Chu-Talas River Basin, to thank many organizations, and so first of all, Water Convention and the others for long-standing support in building commission, in building its activities, in bringing pilot activities, and as well as environmentalization of the activities in river basins in Central Asia. And so the Chu River brings down about from 5 to 6 billion cubic meters of water a year. And Talas River is much smaller, 1.5 billion cubic meters a year. And then the 95% of water in two basins are used in agriculture. It's almost evenly shared between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. Then the main challenges as of the transboundary diagnostic analysis made within GF International's Waters project implemented from 2015-2018, and that the 30 to 40% of abstracted surface waters are lost upon transportation, and up to 60% of left water, and so for irrigation. From that amount, 60% are lost upon end use and watering by farmers, and so by other users. Within last 15 years, the climate change works interestingly in our region. It rotates, and so more or less wet years, 2-3 years of plenty of water, and so with the scarce water years, which goes for 2 years. This year was very very scarce of water, and then governments every time when we face droughts over there, they raise the issue and call for building new dams and building more water facilities and catch water for serving and so human needs. And it includes also, they call for drying up wetlands, prevent water infiltration, and that makes that nature would not work for providing these services, because and so then water lost in the main drain and lodged downstream, if it is considered as a water loss, meaning to say everything will be done, everything will be human-made, which I believe increases very much cost of the climate change adaptation. And that's why there is a question, would climate change adaptation in Chu-Talas account for nature and ecosystems or not? And I talked about the emerged perceptions when we face dry years and droughts. And then the other perception, since there is a huge capacity due to current use of water, and so increased water efficiency to cut water losses, to reduce water losses on transportation and end use. There is a huge problem of water quality because of the, specifically in Chu River Basin, which populates more than 3 million people and largest settlements, and so including capital of Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek. And the quality of water, wastewater treatment is needed to be improved. And then upper catchment areas of both basins are mountains.
Sorry, Talabek, you have about 1 minute left.
Okay. That's the main message. And then I would like to thank the GF for bringing the transboundary diagnostic analysis with the strategic action program, which stands for the, partially stands for the conservation of ecosystems and nature-based solutions to work. And then the recommendation is to keep extended room for nature-based solutions and ecosystems to work over man-made and safeguard-driven adaptation to climate change while investing in water efficiency, biodiversity conservation, and so on. Because government of Kyrgyzstan is long approaching the Islamic Development Bank at the moment for man-made solutions. And so while I don't think that would work for the long term, it is a short-term measure. That's why actually the recommendation is to keep as much as possible on nature-based solutions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Talabek. Yeah, and you did say on time. Thank you for that too. It seems to me that one of the key issues that you highlighted, and maybe if you can ponder that as a potential question, is the variability, how to manage the variability, because I sense that there is a lot happening between and even within years. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next one, and that's Alexandra Moreira, who will talk about from the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization. She'll talk about building climate resilience in transboundary cooperation in the Amazon. Over to you, Alexandra.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Okay, it's okay. My screen is, it's okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
Well, like you know, the climate change is impacting the life of the more than 48 million Amazonian people and the equilibrium of the most biodiverse ecosystem and largest freshwater system in the world. People testimony and scientific studies account for the intensified phenomena retreat of the Andean Amazonian tropical glaciers, change in frequency and timing of floods and droughts in the plains, sea level rise and coastal erosion in the Amazon data and coastline. The Amazon basin in the world is a complex and interconnected system, and adaptation measures are needed at the transboundary ecosystem and across sectoral level. And this is the approach adopted by the ACTO, also providing an enabled and catalytic political, institutional, social environment for integrated water resource management. Based on the Regional Amazon Cooperation Treaty signed in 1978, ACTO is in a unique position to facilitate the political dialogue, knowledge, and information exchange and regional cooperations. Since its creation in 1998, ACTO has been conceived with a vision of multi-thematic and multi-sectoral institutional agenda, including issues such as water, forest, biodiversity, indigenous people, climate change, and the others, oriented to integrate the political, environmental, and social economic dimension of sustainable development and improving the quality of life of the Amazonian population. Currently, through its regional framework for the management of water resources, the organization is supporting the countries building climate resilience and adaptation to climate change along three interconnected lines of actions. The first one is related to through the Strategic Action Program, SAP, adopted by the basin countries, in partnership with UNEP and GEF, is strengthening water governance at regional and national level for improving basin management across borders and implementing transboundary actions for water security and climate change adaptation. As part of this process, a permanent integrated water resource management coordination mechanism for the Amazon basin will be established at ACTO, based on agreed common principles and standards, information sharing mechanisms, and regional information platform, financial instruments, and gender mainstreaming, along with a strengthening regional cooperation mechanisms for integrated water resource management. And furthermore, activities will contribute to strengthening the abilities of Amazonian communities to adapt to climate change events and promote regional water resource and environmental monitoring, which lead us to the second point, or the second line, related to building climate resilience at ecosystem levels. ACTO activities focus on expanding the knowledge and filling data gaps at the basin level, as well as implementing on-the-ground activities to promote community and ecosystem resilience. In this sense, we developed the Atlas of Hydroclimatic Vulnerability of the Amazon region, which constitute a comprehensive tool for development for adaptation measures. In addition, the first regional water and environmental monitoring system to cover the whole basin. These our system include the Amazon Hydrological Network with total of 303 monitoring points, and water quality monitor 111 monitoring points, along with the future HEs, aquatic ecosystem, and upper catchment monitoring networks, providing data of the Amazon Regional Observatory hosted by the ACTO also. Furthermore, here we have the organization is supporting the implementation of adaptation measures along a source to sea continuum, including, for example, developing alternative water supply in communities affected by glacier loss in the Andes mountain of Bolivia and Peru, for example, early warming system for floods and droughts in vulnerable transboundary areas such as MAP region. It's in Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru. Another one, we have the nature-based solutions to protect coastal ecosystem and mangroves, which are critical carbon sinks in Suriname, and protecting groundwater source for flood pollution in Guyana. And the last one, ensuring resilient groundwater supplies to insulate communities in Brazil. In the third line, we're working across sector for a resilient society. ACTO has partnered with IDB to develop a multi-sectoral water, food, energy nexus model for the Amazon basin to help understand nexus implication of future policies and investment and optimize sustainability and resilience in the context of climate scenarios. The regional initiative is developing simulation models for hydrological scenarios and the nexus between energy, food, and water in the basin. Identification of investment needs and investment plans with a multi-sectoral approach. We will complement the SAP. An identification of information gaps for the socioeconomic development in the basin, including water balance, basic service, infrastructure, and conservation and natural resource. Moreover, a technical cooperation act of IDB is focusing on ensuring the provision of the sustainable basin services for the Amazon population, including drinking water, basin sanitation, and solid waste management, supporting of SDG 6. In a context of the reducing structural inequality gaps, which is essential for our resilient society. Those are some of our strategic partners, and thank you very much for this space.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Perfectly on time, very rich presentation, lots of technical details, very much appreciated. Also for you to ponder, I mean, technically, I mean, you covered it all, but I was wondering if you can also think, you know, with a 1 minute, 30-second answer on what were the main challenges that was seen in this process. So thank you very much. And let's move to the final intervention. And that's going to be by Ethiopia Bisrat, who's a water resources engineer, and she'll talk about adapting together. And I've been fortunate to be interacting with Ethiopia in one of her many things that she's done when she was an intern at the ENTRO in the Nile Basin Initiative, where they have an interesting program that Ethiopia was part of. So I'm really looking forward to listen to your perspective, Ethiopia. Over to you, and you got 7 minutes. I'll come on when there's 1 minute left on the screen. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we see them.
Okay, so I'll be talking about climate change adaptation in Transboundary Basin and adding a youth perspective and focusing mainly on the Nile Basin. So I will start with addressing the effects of climate change. So the effects of climate change, such as droughts, flooding, and even pest attacks. That means reduction in overall ecosystem services are more pronounced in areas where natural resources are already under massive utilization. That is the case in the Nile Basin because large proportion of regions around the Nile Basin often rely on these natural resources due to their high dependence on rain-fed agriculture and requirement of natural resources for their daily livelihood. So droughts cause significant impact on altering land use patterns, affecting both environment and economy, as well as their ecosystem services. And also floods can also cause loss of lives, loss of infrastructure, and food insecurity, which is difficult and almost impossible to recover from within these countries. So unless addressed, climate change is expected to exacerbate or cause additional stress, and it could be the cause of instability. So why involve youth in climate change adaptation strategies? So the youth constitutes about the majority of the population in most countries, and the Eastern Nile Basin is no exception. Around 85% of the population is composed of youth. And in the future generation, the young that are today, the young people that are today are the ones that will experience the significant climate change related impacts over the course of their future. And the intensification of major events therefore poses a major threat to their well-being and their future. So there needs to be a paradigm shift. So it's often said that the youth is a very vulnerable social group, often vulnerable because of its large population that's either misrepresented or underrepresented. And instead of classifying the youth as a vulnerable social group because of its position to not that much affect the formulation of present-day policies, we need to shift to asking, how can we make use of the youth to the Earth's advantage? So how can we make use of the untapped manpower and untapped potential, leading us to the role of youth in climate change adaptation? So it is up to the youth to build a climate resilient future in order to reduce flooding, desertification, and to preserve the natural ecosystem and the many services that it provides. So it's the young people that have an increasing social platform and environmental awareness that has the power to transform societies toward a climate resilient future. They can participate through raising awareness, adapting to environmentally friendly practices, promoting sustainable lifestyles and conserving nature, and even running different educational programs. Some practical examples within the Nile Basin that I can mention, I will just start with South Sudan. So some youth committees have already been formed around various issues, one of which is concerned over water and food insecurity. They work with local government officials that actually lay a foundation for sustainable development. And some research also suggests that they engage in their communities as well. In Sudan, there are various or numerous youth-led organizations. They work on data collection, surveying, helping affected families from flood impacts, as majority of cases in Sudan is associated with flooding. They build barriers against high flows, and they raise awareness. In Egypt as well, youth startup organizations actually organize workshops in order to raise awareness that covers or that caters for different age groups. So for the very young communities or the youngsters, through innovation, art, storytelling, and they try to relay important information through a simplified scientific format so that the recipient understands it more. They also organize events such as participating in plastic removal. The recent one that I can mention is a reduction of plastic from beaches around Alexandria. And they also hold discussions on how to integrate climate change into their daily lives and how they can actually integrate it. Examples in Ethiopia also include afforestation, participating in tree planting, learning about different irrigation techniques and cultivation methods, and not only learning about it, but also teaching or passing their knowledge to their parents and to their communities. This has been practiced in some of the rural parts of Ethiopia. In some urban parts as well, there are youth-led companies that strive to make tangible change. Such tangible change that I can mention is producing tree-free paper that is producing it from agro-waste, which is eco-friendly and carbon neutral as well as non-toxic. So it can be seen that the countries within the basin conduct similar tasks, basically adapting together as their problems also align. So under a cooperative setting, they are also capable of doing much more. So next, we will see the opportunities and some of the challenges that have been faced while doing these projects. So the major opportunity is the manpower or the number of youth that we currently have. They have the drive, the capacity, and the eagerness to mobilize within or work within social groups and enterprises, and not only working on research, but they can bring it down to a scale where it can be made practical. That is considered an advantage or an opportunity for stakeholders. In terms of challenge, unstable political regimes that hinder youth participation has been mentioned often in some of the countries, and also lack of funding, which often stems from the inability to trust the youth with large sums of funding, and also lack of cohesion. That is the creation of gap between the youth's needs and expectations versus what the policymakers' decisions, which prevents the youth from participating, or in general, which creates an environment that undoes what has already been done. So my recommendation is that we've already established that the youth has the social platform for easy communication, the passion, the creativity, and commitment. So to develop an almost well-rounded or fully rounded workforce, I recommend working on youth empowerment through knowledge building and skill training. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ethiopia. Thanks for the energy and great ideas. I have one question for you as well to ponder as we go for a quick round of all the speakers. Do you think, from your perspective and experiences, that it's easier to see cooperation happening between youth in regions such as the Nile Basin if you compare to what you see at the more senior level, if you like, where people may have their views already sort of cemented, if I may put it that way. So that's something for you to ponder. I'm going to invite all the speakers for one final sort of 30 to 45 second round of quick comments. And I'd like, I've already hinted at some of the questions that for some of you. There is one question that came in the chat that I'm wondering whether yours can just have a quick go at, and that's coming from Mohammed Shahid Iqbal, and he poses this question: transboundary conflict disrupts the peace and economy of countries. On top of this, deficit of trust further destroys the situation. Without a third party's intervention, how to bring peace and harmony between countries? And he also says, I'm talking about the ongoing situation of Afghanistan. And I'm thinking whether from your perspective, does the Water Convention, the UNECE work that you've been part of and contributing to, is that something that could help mitigate this? So very quick answer. Sorry for the short time. Over to you.
Yeah. Well, if there's as I said already in my presentation, if there's no will to cooperate, then it's virtually impossible. But in the end of the day, there's always a mutual dependence between neighboring countries, and so I think that the point is to find this mutual benefit, the mutual interest, and from there try to work and try to build something better. And from this perspective, also under the Water Convention, there's also a publication about what are benefits and how can you use them of benefits cooperation, not only in the water itself, but also what is going on around the water. So very short, but there's a publication also on that. That may be helpful.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you, Jos, for that response, and thank you, Mohammed, for the question. So then, moving on to Anna, I wonder if you just, as I hinted, can talk just a little bit about the challenges in the process that you outlined so eloquently. Over to you.
So actually, the climate change and adaptation to climate change is also a challenging task, of course, for everyone, for every country, and especially for transboundary river basin. So from our perspective, from let's say at the basinal level, an issue is unstable political situation for this couple of years. We hope that this political situation will stabilize, is already stabilized in sorry for English, and this year, and will be much better in the future. We really hope. So another issues, so challenging, let's say, are different approaches and mechanisms to implement national and international legislation in both countries. However, the effort is put to harmonize this legislation in Moldova and Ukraine in both countries through dialogue. And another important challenge is, of course, in not sufficient funding. For now, the measures mainly are funded by international projects, mainly from Europe, and this is very good for us, and thanks Europe for help. What to say, actually the dialogue is from Moldova in Ukraine is based on this regarding the Dnestr Commission. Dnestr is based on dialogue through the Dnestr Commission, which is actually very young. And we plan to do next meetings this year, and to speak about all the challenges, including the challenge about hydropower complex, which is situated at the border of Ukraine and Moldova, and about the problems that Ukraine actually want to develop and enlarge this hydropower complex, which is not really, and Moldova is not really happy with that, of course.
Okay. Sorry, Anna, we need to give the opportunity to the others, but that's very good. Thank you very much. Talibek, I mentioned climate variability as being the, as I'm hearing it, a main challenge. I wonder if you could just elaborate very briefly half a minute on this, please.
Actually, I would make a call so to the governments of Kyrgyzstan and other countries. I'm from Kyrgyzstan, from Central Asia. Let's politicize the water issues, and so learn more to build balanced transboundary relations, and then put efforts to early warning. And because there is no available data, no available information and messages for decision makers, and at the whole for Central Asia. And moreover, we have to take into account Afghanistan, which is due to the long situation over there was sleeping with water use. And so they will, and so hopefully in the future, and so they will use their share of water in Central Asia, which will make a pressure for the entire region. That's why this is quite important to learn and build transboundary relation with considering nature and ecosystems as well, ecosystem services.
Thank you very much. That's clear. Alexandra, also for you, question about the challenges in the Amazon and bring about that cooperation. Over to you for half a minute.
Thank you, Anders. The Amazon Basin faced numerous challenges with regard climate change, but within its political, environmental, and socioeconomic context, recently aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So in this context, strengthening the organizational and institutional capacity of ACTO and its member countries at all levels and across sectors is essential for improving water governance and climate resilience in the Amazon Basin. Also, the urgency and need for greater production of data, studies, and regional information to generate greater and better response, and especially regional climate scenario for the Amazon about the expected behavior of our basin. This information is crucial to improve our actions for adaptation and resilience the climate change. And I agree with Anna when she said there are not enough international funds to do these all kind of issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Then quickly, Ethiopia, is it easier for youth to cooperate than for perhaps older people? Over to you for half a minute to reflect on that, please.
Well, of course, senior levels, people in senior levels already have formulated problems and perhaps solutions. But I believe that cooperations, young people in the globe are actually challenging that notion, because it is the future of the youth to form cooperative alliances and so on. And it is their future. So I believe it can also be possible to organize or to make youth cooperations. I'm not saying the youth have to work completely separately from that of the senior level officials, but I believe that with cohesion between the senior level and the youth, we can get, I believe we can get better outcomes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ethiopia, and thank you everyone for such a rich panel. I'm now handing back to Sonia for some concluding remarks before we wrap up. Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you very much also from my side on behalf of all the co-organizers, to the speakers and also participants for this interesting discussion. I think we have seen that while transboundary cooperation is difficult, it can really bring concrete benefits on the ground for local populations in terms of ecosystem protection, restoration, in terms of also job creation, in terms of better addressing floods and droughts, saving lives actually in the end. And I think these benefits and this importance of transboundary water cooperation needs to be brought forward to the highest political level, including in the climate change discussions. For example, towards the upcoming COP26 in Glasgow later this year, but also towards the nationally determined contributions which all the countries have, or which are currently still in some cases being revised. And while they are unfortunately so far mainly nationally focused, it would be important also to bring transboundary elements into these NDCs and other climate-related strategies and actions. And finally, I would like to invite you all to continue these discussions in different fora. All SIWI, the different organizations here present, provide fora for these discussions, including, for example, the Water Convention and, for example, at the upcoming 9th session of the Meeting of the Parties to be held at the end of September in Geneva and virtually. And with this, once again, I thank everybody and hope to see many of you at other events in the World Water Week, at the COP26, and wish all of you a lot of luck and good further work and cooperation at the basin level. Thank you.